I'm going to call this meeting to order tonight. I am Commissioner Doreen Williams, and the Vice Chair in charge of conducting this meeting tonight. We do have a quorum, and we will start with an approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve this agenda as presented.
I second the motion. All in favor say aye.
It's been properly moved. Seconded.
It's been properly moved.
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes of the September 22nd, 2022 zoning public hearing meeting.
I second it. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we will now hear the rules of procedures for public hearings.
Each speaker must sign their name to the appropriate zoning case sheet and fill out a public comment card to register their intent to speak prior to the start of this meeting. Each item of business shall be handled in the order that it appears on the agenda, unless upon motion of the board, the order is changed. A member of the county planning staff will present each item to the board and will provide recommendations made by both the planning staff and the Conyers-Rockdale Planning Commission for each item of business. The zoning applicant or the agent will have 10 minutes in which to make his or her presentation. Any portion of their 10 minutes may be reserved for rebuttal following the opposition to the application. After the applicant's presentation, all registered speakers who wish to speak in favor of the application will then be heard. They will also be limited to a total of 10 minutes. Once the applicant has made his or her presentation and the speakers in favor of the application have been heard, the secretary will then call upon the registered speakers in opposition to the application. The opposition shall likewise be limited to a total of 10 minutes. Once the public hearing portion is closed, no other speakers will be heard. As a reminder, speakers are to address the board and not the applicant or the audience and are expected to conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. The use of abusive or profane language shall not be allowed. No debate or argument between speakers shall be permitted. After all public comments have been heard, the board may elect to hold general discussion. However, no decisions will be rendered at this hearing. Decisions will be made at the next regularly scheduled Board of Commissioners meeting. Appeals shall be filed with the clerk of Rockdale County Superior Court within 30 days after the final decision by the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, thank you. There is no old or unfinished business. And so I am going to turn the time over to Deputy Director Chris Wheeler, and we will proceed with the new business as outlined on the agenda. And as a reminder, again, there will be no decisions made tonight. This is simply a public hearing.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioner Williams. Good evening, Commissioner Washington.
Good evening.
The first case brought to you this evening is RZ case 22-08. The applicant is Galloway Law Group. The applicant is looking to rezone R1 single-family residential to limited industrial. The subject property is 12.0 acres. This requires, this application requires two public hearings, one we previously had with the Planning Commission and one that we're having tonight. Before you is an aerial photo of the subject property. As you can see, the property has frontage along Farmer Road and Lester Road and Sigmund Road. It's currently undeveloped, as you can see. Next, this is an aerial photo of the subject property. Again, the current zoning of the subject property is R1 single-family industrial. Located to the south of the subject property are industrial zone properties and single-family development properties, as well as to the north of the subject property and to the east of the property. This is the future land use map of the subject property. Again, it has a future land use category of light industrial. Abutting or adjacent to the subject property is zone property with a high density residential future land use category. Adjacent to it as well is medium density medium density residential category. A summary of this application, the applicant is looking to develop a 180,000 square foot logistic warehouse. The property is again abutting existing light industrial zone properties. The property is located in a light industrial transportation activity center. The applicant did conduct a traffic study. That traffic study did show that there would be no significant impact or significant issues with the development as it currently proposed, as well as the level of service for that project would be acceptable. This is the proposed site plan of the subject property. To point out a few things, the main truck access will be along Farmer Road and Lester Road. The applicant has indicated that there would be access for trucks along Sigmund Road, but again, most of the truck access will be along Farmer Road and Lester Road. They have indicated that there will be employee parking off Sigmund Road, and most of the truck traffic will be located along Farmer Road and Lester Road, as indicated on the site plan, showing that the loading, unloading of the trucks will be at the rear of the property. The applicant has also indicated that there will be a landscape buffer along Farmer Road, since the property abuts residential single-family property at this point in time. Again, that buffer would be a 20-foot buffer located on the site plan. Again, the applicant has indicated that they will have a detention pond on the subject property, as well as they have indicated that they will be connecting to water and sewer. If you notice in your packet, they do have a letter showing that there isn't any sewer capacity at this point in time, but the applicant has indicated that they were going to connect to sewer capacity across Sigmund Road. All other department comments did not have any major comments regarding this project. Therefore, staff did recommend approval of this application. However, the Planning Commission did recommend denial of this application. The applicant is here if you have any questions of the applicant. I'm sorry. The applicant is here to present his case. Do you have any questions of staff?
So do we know why the Planning Commission voted for denial?
The Planning Commission recommended denial of the traffic. They indicated that they believe that the truck traffic was going to be a significant issue for the property.
So did I understand this correctly, that there was a traffic study done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And it said there was no significant...
Yes, ma'am. No, there was, again, the traffic study indicated that there wouldn't be any kind of significant issues regarding this development. Again, the traffic study showed that all levels of service would be acceptable.
Okay. And who did the traffic study?
The applicant, I believe it was, I can't think, the name escapes me at this time, which engineering company did the traffic study.
Okay. Commissioner?
Yes. A few years ago, and I've said this a couple of times, we did a market study for Sigmund Road, and it detailed a lot of things that we desired, the community desired for Sigmund Road. Was this market study referenced when the planning department recommended approval? And is this a part of that is this in line with what that market study indicated was recommended use for Sigmund Road?
Unfortunately, I do not know if the Sigmund corridor study was used to actually write the staff report. I'm not too sure. I apologize for not knowing that. I would believe that it was used to use as a reference point, but I think the factors that the staff used were the planning, with the rezoning standard criteria. We use those as our basis for a staff report, as well as the future land use comprehensive plan as well. I would caution using the Sigmund Road study as a real determining factor, because again, the determining factor, because that indicates several other items, unlike the rezoning criteria that we set forth in our code.
I'm sorry, say that last part again. You recommend,
I would use it maybe not as, I wouldn't use it as an overall determining factor, as we have several other factors in our code that are used to determine zoning cases and future land use cases. But I wouldn't indicate it would be an overall huge impact regarding a staff analysis of the application.
and is this the same company that was previously tried to put the warehouse?
No, ma'am, no, this is
This
a
a
separate,
different-
this is, yes, ma'am, it's a separate company.
Okay.
Or I should say a separate applicant.
Okay, so would we like to move to the applicant presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is this in the right place? I guess it is. Raise it. Any better? Okay, great. I apologize. I got a bit of a frog in my throat anyway, so maybe y'all don't want me to pull it up too close. My name is Jordan Edwards, 4062 Peachtree Road, Atlanta, 30319. Here to represent the applicant, Huntington Industrial Partners, in this request for rezoning of approximately 12 acres at 1945 Sigmund Road from the R1 district to the M1 district to allow for a light industrial use of the property. I know R1 to M1 sounds extreme, but under the circumstances, the facts of this case, I think it actually makes a lot of sense. David McDaniel and Jimmy Warren are here with me tonight. They're both with Huntington. I also want to point out, though, that the property has been in David's family for going on 50 years now. So it's not the typical case of, a developer coming in, acquiring a whole bunch of properties, getting them under contract, and then trying to rezone it. This is, like I said, a family property for a long time. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, finally. It's been a long time coming. We first appeared before the Planning Commission in July. Due to an administrative error, we went back again earlier this month. The Planning Commission voted to approve one time, voted to deny one time on the same facts. So we're happy to bring this case to you tonight. Mr. Wheeler did a great job summarizing the case. I don't want to spend too much time redoing that work. Christopher, you can do the next one there. I do want to review these two maps, though, quickly. On the left is the future land use map from the Comprehensive Plan 2018. It designates the property light industrial. As you can see, it designates everything in the area, light industrial, everything south of Farmer Road, down past the railroad, all the way over to 20. So this is a very industrial area. Previous versions of the comprehensive plan also designated the property light industrial. It's a category, and I'm quoting here, that includes warehousing, distribution, trucking, manufacturing, which are primary uses. That's from page 29 of the comprehensive plan. And then on the right is the zoning map. Everything in pink is industrial, and you can see that these two maps marry up pretty well. There are a couple of exceptions of properties that retain their original, I think, default R1 zoning. The property is one of those districts. But as you can see, it's adjacent to industrial districts. It's in the middle of this very industrial area. It's got frontage on Sigmund Road. So I think an M1 classification to match what's around it is more appropriate. But just as important as that is that the R1 classification, the current classification, is not appropriate for this property. That classification requires is a single-family district that requires minimum lot sizes of 30,000 square feet, max density of 1.45 per acre. So you're looking at, if you were to develop under that classification, 6, maybe 7 house lots, and this is just not an area that's appropriate for that kind of development, based on all the factors that I just mentioned. So we do think that residential zoning of the property realistically wipes out its economic value. On the other hand, M1 to match is more appropriate. Mr. Wheeler, you can go to that next one. As to the specific development plans, this is pretty standard design for this type of use. You've got a single dock, rear-loaded warehouse. About 10% of this square footage is going to be used for office, we're expecting. And we also have begun a dialogue with DOT about the medium break on Sigmund Road. They're positive conversations, but waiting the zoning. I do also want to emphasize how small this is relative to other industrial uses. You mentioned the previous case for the property that's across the street, not us, but that's also much larger. This is less than half the size of that one, less than the fourth of the number of truck trailer spaces that were proposed. Because it's a smaller development, it's going to generate fewer truck trips. At the very beginning of this process, before we even filed the zoning application, we sat down with staff and determined that we needed to do a traffic study. We retained Kimley Horn. Y'all might be familiar with them. They're one of the most reputable engineering firms in the country. They did a very conservative analysis. When I say that, I mean that they used very aggressive traffic assumptions because they wanted this to be robust. We did too. And I'm happy to spend any amount of time discussing that. I've got more slides that I provided to you. Of course, we've submitted the whole study to the county. In the interest of time, the takeaway is that this project is simply not going to generate a significant number of new trips and certainly not a significant number of truck trips. In the peak morning and afternoon hours, we're talking about 2 trucks, maybe, 1, maybe. Mr. Wheeler, that next slide. Now this slide, it does break all the rules of PowerPoint presentations because there's too much information. But quickly, what you've got here is a side-by-side geometric representations of the property. So the horizontal line across the bottom is Sigmund Road. The arc across the top is Farmer, and that makes vertical Lester. This shows the proposed 2023 no build versus build scenarios. So it provides, by comparing these, you can see the difference that the project will have on every intersection adjacent to the property. So you compare like to like, so the green box versus the green box. That's what the difference between those numbers is the impact of this project. The parenthetical numbers are the number of trips passing through that intersection on that turn motion in the PM hour. The unbracketed number is the AM hour. So as you can see, green to green, blue to blue, you can do this for any of those intersection numbers. The impact is very slight over the course of a 60-minute hour, especially the peak hour when people care the most about going through, getting to work and getting home. So based on the data, on quantitative analysis, there's hardly any impact to the intersections here. Mr. Wheeler, the next slide. I just want to leave you with an impression of the applicant. They've been doing this for a long time. They've developed many, many millions of square feet across the country. They've done it in many places around the Atlanta area. These are photos of Atlanta area projects, Brazelton, Fairburn. They've done several. They do a high quality product. So to conclude, if you look at the zoning map, property really looks like it's almost spot zone residential in a large industrial area. That residential zoning, we think, wipes out the economic value of the property. M1 to match what's around it would be much more appropriate. Comprehensive plan recommends light industrial. Professional engineers have determined there won't be a significant impact on the traffic in the area. Staff recommended approval subject to several conditions. We have no problem with those conditions. So we ask that you vote to approve tonight. And of course, happy to answer any questions, but I'll reserve any time I've got left.
Okay, do you have any questions for the applicant before we move into public comment?
No, not
Okay. No. All right. So do you have anybody who signed up to speak for this application tonight?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
We have 1, 2, 3. We have 4 people. The first to speak is Mr. George Kelichek.
Just as a reminder, there's 10 minutes total. So in order for all 4 to be able to talk and present, everybody needs to be mindful of their time.
Good evening, Rockdale County citizens, commissioners. George Kelichek, 40-year real estate developer and real estate investor in the states of Florida and Georgia. With all due respect from the Galloway Law Group LLC, they're from Atlanta, Georgia. This is Rockdale County. citizens of the Haynes Watershed Foundation, the Eye of the Taxpayer Association, and also the Rockdale Soil Water Conservation District speak in opposition. We have to look at new ways of doing things. Currently, this is what's happening to Rockdale County. All of our land is being clear-cut and not representing the environment. The gentleman that was just here said this is appropriate for this area. I could understand. But he said it's hardly any impact. I'd have to disagree. Why? One tractor trailer equals 10 vehicles on our roads in Rockdale County. And that information came from the Transportation SPLOST Committee of Rockdale County. So there will be an impact. So again, it's going to have a great effect on our infrastructure and our roads, law enforcement, 911, and the taxpayers of Rockdale County. That's why we're speaking in opposition. I hope to be back up later to provide additional information on other projects. Again, clear-cutting our land and destroying our environment. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wheeler, who's next?
Dr. Linda Aiken-Young.
Good evening, Chairman Nesbitt in his absence, Commissioner Washington, and Commissioner Vice Chair Williams.
Good evening.
What can I say?
Doctor, could you lower the mic so that...
Okay, I'm sorry. What can I say? Yes, it's me again. I'm starting to attend your meetings as often as you as commissioners attend. We were in shock when we realized that there was a second request to rezone for a warehouse truck stop in our neighborhood across the street from the one that we were here to oppose last month, just last month. We're here this evening singing the second verse of the same song that we sang on September the 27th when we met with you for an identical rezoning request, same type of warehouse truck stop. Item R1 REZ case number 202208 seeks to rezone from R1 single residential to M1 limited industrial, 12 acres to build a 180,000 square foot warehouse truck stop, which would have, as they've shared at the planning meeting, 100+ trips in and out per day. Light industrial, we do not oppose, versus warehouse truck stop, yes, we do. Just last Wednesday, my brother and sister-in-law had a huge transfer truck to literally drive into their automobile at the intersection of Sigmund Road and Covington Highway. And they were simply sitting at the light, waiting on the light to change. Again, we, the residents of Farmer and Lester Roads, are opposed to this rezoning request. Just as September the 27th when we met, we opposed it because of the safety issues. It would literally destroy our neighborhood and put our lives and the lives of our family members and friends in danger. We oppose the rezoning because of the noise, pollution that the trucks going in and out and coming all day and all night would bring to our neighborhood. We're opposed to this rezoning because of the impact it will have on our streets. As we shared at our last meeting, we already have dump trucks and extensive through traffic that use our street as their route, and they've literally destroyed the pavement, making it dangerous for cars to travel for potholes. We oppose the rezoning because it violates the Rockdale County Land Use Plan. Some of us have been in these neighborhoods for 4 or 5 generations. We need you to help us to continue to be Rockdale County citizens. Rockdale commissioners, we are truly grateful for your vote in September to deny the request to build a warehouse truck stop in our neighborhood. Please let us count on your vote to deny the current request, which is exactly the same thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Wheeler, who would be next?
Mr. Al Tart.
Okay. Mr. Parks?
To the commissioners, it is indeed a pleasure to come before you again, but just like Dr. Young has alluded to, we were here once before for 1975 Sigmund Road. We believe that the impact will be the same no matter what. It's 180,000 square foot warehouse that they're requesting, and at least now we do have a Rockdale Development Council that has come into play that can also look at some of the areas that we're talking about. But again, we're talking about taking single-family homes to light industrial. That is not good. And the reason that it isn't is because of the impact that it would have on I-20. No matter how you look at it, no matter how many things you tell the truck driver, he has a mind of his own. He's going to challenge things, and he's going to get out of there and make 8 hours out of whatever he has to deliver. And it doesn't matter what he is told not to do. He has a mind of his own because he has to get that work done within a certain amount of time. And the thing that really impedes the entire process is there are a lot of other areas that also feed into that traffic as well. And they're trying to get to work, trying to get to school, trying to get different places, but the ultimate impact is that all of it winds up on I-20. And people already now coming out from Monroe, coming from Covington, are already stressed out over the operation that we have there with just regular community people. So we respectfully request that you look at this very closely and understand our position, that we also would like to be able to get out and look around, and we also would like to be able to get to the places that we're supposed to go. And having all of these trucks come in and the equipment and more employees only congests us even further. And if you haven't already, it might be a good idea if you take a look at that physically so that you can see what we were talking about. It's just not that we're up here just opening our mouth because we're opposed to having a warehouse, but the traffic already is significant, and you have a railroad up there that comes into play before you get on I-20. And once you get past that, then you drop down on I-20, then it's all chaos from there. So we respectfully request that you look at this very seriously and consider the opposition that we're proposing to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Wheeler?
The last speaker is Ms. Karen McClintock.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Karen McClintock, and I live at 1845 Kings Row. The residents of Royal Lake Estates would like to submit a petition to oppose this rezoning request. Yes, we are here again after just last month opposing a similar request to rezone the property in our area from residential to industrial. Tonight, this warehouse is just across the street from the previous one. You denied that request, and we're asking that you deny this request for the same reasons. Now, the applicant claims this to be a much smaller facility, but they admit there are at least 100 plus trips per day. So that's 104 times for us to encounter these trucks, for our buses to come into contact with these trucks, impeding our access. That's the way we get to I-20 and to Sigmund Road. That would impede our access to those roads. And who knows, once the facility is built, they could increase that number of trips. We realize that Sigmund Road is industrial, but the plan shows that these trucks are going to be coming in from Farmer Road and Lester Roads. And we've already shown the previous opposition told you about the reasons that these roads should not be used. We've talked about the little narrow roads for Farmer and Lester. But that's our way to get to Piedmont Hospital, to get to I-20, to get to Sigmund Road. And we just request that you deny this request and that the residential property in our neighborhood remain residential. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wheeler, what would be next?
The applicant has 2 minutes and 30 seconds left for rebuttal if he chooses to use it.
Okay.
Sorry, you said 2.5? 2.5. Just a couple of responses, really. To Mr. Kalichek, he mentioned the environmental impact. You know, we are developing property, of course, but this is not in a watershed district. There's no streams on this property. In fact, everything in this area around it to the south is industrial and has been industrial. You know, going back to the 80s, 90s, there's still development in the 2000s. So this is an industrial area. Dr. Akins-Young, you know, this came up at the Planning Commission as well. This is not a truck stop. A truck stop is very specific use. It's defined in the ordinance, and that is not this. Destroying a couple of comments about destroying neighborhoods and the streets in the neighborhoods. There are residential uses to the north, both up Farmer and Lester. No trucks from this property would have any reason to go in that direction. This is in the traffic study, they'll be going back to 20, but we're also open to the idea of signage to limit where trucks could go, just to make sure that's absolutely clear. But no trucks from this development are going in that direction. Also, the comment that this is exactly the same as what was denied across the street. I mentioned this before, but this is incredibly different. Future land use category here is light industrial. There, it was high density residential. We're adjacent to industrial uses. That one was not. We've got frontage on a principal arterial road. That one did not. Less than half the square footage, less than a quarter of the truck parking spaces. That one was an assemblage of residential uses, existing houses. This one is not. This one is undeveloped and has never been developed. It's been held by the same family in reliance on the long-term planning documents of the county that showed that this was going to be industrial. And based on the facts of the ground, based on what's around the property, it ought to be industrial. It should not be R1. I guess just about out of time, so I'll pause there. But like I said before, I'm happy to answer any questions about anything that I've said tonight, but especially about the traffic study. I can speak to that if you are of interest.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes the public hearing on this property at 1945 Sigmund Road. And we will now move to 2294 Iris Drive Southwest.
Yes, this applicant is Battle of Law. The applicant is requesting to rezone 12.94 acres from C2 general commercial to RM residential multifamily for the development of 129 attached townhomes. This is an aerial photo of this is the future land use map of the subject property. The future land use of the subject property is a mixed-use employment center located adjacent to the subject property. Again, is another property that has a future land use character area of mixed-use employment. Further south, you have future land use character areas of commercial and office institutional, and across I-20, there is industrial and commercial uses as future character areas as well. This is a current zoning map of the subject property. Again, the current property has a zoning of C2. Abutting the subject property, again, is a property that has a C2 zone commercial zoning district. Adjacent to it, to the south of it, is a R1 single-family district zone property. And further south along Iris Drive, there are commercial and office institutional zone property as well. This is an aerial photo of the subject property, give you a better understanding exactly where it is located. Again, the subject property is located off Iris Drive, abutting the subject property or existing multifamily apartments, the St. James St. Charles apartment complex, as well as established single-family residentials along McDaniel Mill Road. A summary of this application. Again, the applicant is looking to develop 129 townhome unit. Again, the property is abutting existing multifamily and mixed-use zone site. The applicant is looking to have a density of 9.9 units per acre. The current zoning would allow for them to up to 12. They have 2 points of access along Iris Drive. The applicant is, again, the subject property is located along a major collector corridor. The applicant did submit a traffic study as well. Again, that traffic study indicated that there's no significant impact and that all levels of services would be acceptable.
So are you saying that we do not have to change the future land use map because it's already, that's already...
Yes, ma'am. Yes, that zoning category, the zoning that they are requesting, it is allowed under that current future land use category.
Okay.
This is a proposed site plan of the development. Just a few things to point out. Again, there are 2 points of access along Iris Drive. The applicant has indicated that there are going to be several parks as amenity areas for the residents of the area, as well as a dog park located to the northwest of the subject property. The applicant has indicated that they are going to connect to water and sewer connections as well. In their packet, the applicant did receive a letter from Water Resources indicating that there isn't any sewer capacity at this point. However, there will be sewer capacity at the beginning of 2023. According to our Water Resources Department, the pump station where the applicant would have to connect into would be online early February, early March. By the time this development, if approved, would begin construction. The applicant, development did not receive any other significant comments from other departments besides that one from Water Resources. The applicant is indicating the stormwater detention areas, again, located to the south and to the west of the subject property, as well as to the north of it. They indicated there will be a landscape buffer along Iris Drive, as well as adjacent to the mixed use, the C2 zone commercial property.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, do you have any questions for him?
Not right now. I'm
Okay.
formulating them.
So we can go into the presentation by the applicant.
Yes, ma'am. I also wanted to did mention that staff did recommend approval of this application. However, the Planning Commission did recommend denial based off school counts.
Off of school counts?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, they indicated that they had concerns regarding the school impact on schools.
Oh, okay. Well, my understanding is there's open room at every school in our county, according to Dr. Oates.
Again, those technical review sheets are in your packet as well. Again, that we did receive those comments from in the technical review sheets from the school board itself. But again, that was the reason for the recommended denial of this application.
Okay. So the school board came to the Planning Commission, is that what you're saying?
No, ma'am. No, they provided a technical review sheet in your packet. And again, they indicated the level of students in the existing area of this development. Indicated there is capacity for additional students. However, again, they did not provide any further comment besides that. But the Planning Commission decided they would like to deny it based off of their own understanding and review of the application, and decided that it was based off the school count.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner?
No.
Okay.
Good evening, Michelle Battle with Battle Law, 3562 Habersham at North Lake, Tucker, Georgia, 30084. We are happy to be here this evening representing the applicant with regards to the property at 2294 Iris Drive. If we can go to the next slide. Staff has done a great job of outlining the project. There are a few things that I wanted to point out. With regards to the site, you can see with the red dot where we are currently located. Should be noted that immediately south of us are two apartment complexes, one which was built in 1997, the other one in 2000. They have the same owner. That is the only multifamily closest to the project and certainly over 20 years old. When we look at the site, we also see that there's a large area west of the site that is undeveloped. That is Zone C2. It's over 69 acres, which includes the 125-foot Georgia Power easement that lies between two corners of the property and the balance of that 69 acres. And then we've got the 13 acres where the red dot is at. If we can go to the next slide. Again, you can see that that is a very large swath of property that is Zone C2, which is your most intense commercial between C1 and C2 district, which allows a variety of office, commercial, retail type uses. And we believe that the rezoning will actually help to spur development, continued development along the corridor, and with the revitalization of this area. And we can go to the next slide. Staff has already indicated that we meet the land use designation, and on the next slide, go to the next slide, please. This just shows, again, where the property is and how our project lays out on the site. We can go to the next slide. And this is a rendering of the site. Staff has already indicated the total number of units that we're looking for at 129, I believe. When we look at the site, particularly around the perimeter, and why I'm focusing on that is because we did have some opposition at the Planning Commission meeting that got up in regards to the C1 property adjacent to the site. We are providing a 40-foot setback along the perimeter of the property adjacent to both the existing multifamily community as well as the C2 property. And that 40-foot setback is actually greater than what is required. The setback is actually 25 feet for the rear setback and 10 feet for a side yard setback, and we are at 40 feet around the perimeter. Additionally, we have now added fencing along our perimeter in order to provide privacy as well as kind of a buffering between the C2 site and our proposed rezoning of this property to RM. We can go to the next slide. This shows kind of renderings for the site. We can keep going. We can keep going through those, that's fine. We can go through that. The traffic study that we prepared has been submitted to staff and reviewed. These units are between 1,500 to 1,800 square feet. Again, this is going to be a multi-family product. 3 bedrooms, 2-car garages on each of the units. We have both rear and front entry units, and we would anticipate initial lease dates being towards the end of 2023, early 2024 if the project is approved. We can go back. I think we've got one more plan here in the site.
Or in the back.
Is there one more? There we go. My last point that I wanted to make is that with regards to the adjacent property, you can see on this site plan, it's a little hard at the top, but that's the 125-foot Georgia Power easement that lies to the west of the site. And what you can also see is that there's 2 triangular pieces, one kind of at the top and then another triangular piece that goes down to the bottom, which is a part of that larger 69-acre tract. I'm not really sure what could be developed there. There had been a request for a 50-foot buffer on our side against that C2. There is no requirement for a buffer between from an RM property to a C2. C2 would have to provide a buffer against the RM, but by us putting the fence up, that reduces that buffer from 50 feet to 25 feet. So we've tried to do what we can to assist with any challenges that that property owner would have, but noting that they've got that 125-foot Georgia Power easement right there. I think that that kind of limits what they can even do on those other two properties in terms of being able to have new development abutting right up against this project. So we believe that there's sufficient buffer there. We've done what we can to address their issues, and we would respectfully request approval of the application based on the conditions proposed by staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I have one last point, sorry. With regards to the school overcrowding, it has been commonly known that a denial of an application for rezoning based solely upon school overcrowding is one that is up for debate. And we believe that based on the information that has been received from staff and also just knowing in general that to the extent that there's any overcrowding, the school board gets notice of all the zonings that come through during the course of the year and have the opportunity to prepare for the density that is coming into the district. And so to the extent that they need to adjust lines or whatever in order to accommodate the students that will be coming into the area, they have an opportunity to do that. And we believe that this is an appropriate project, is appropriate for the area, it's zoned, the land use designation is appropriate, there's an overabundance of C2 development along this corridor, and it would be nice to see some new things come through. And we believe that providing new quality housing, multifamily housing, particularly in this townhome configuration, is something that will help with the revitalization of the corridor. Thank you.
So what is the price point that you're looking at?
These will be, again, rental units, and I believe...
You said they were going to be what units?
They are rental. It is a multifamily project. I want that to be clear. We said that from the very beginning. That's why we were seeking to rezone to RM. So I'm not sure that they have decided on the actual price points of the units, but I would assume that they're somewhere in about $1,300 to $1,500 range.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What, I see the sidings are, the front looks like a brick facade, but the sidings look like they are wood or...
Those showed hardy plank, but I will say that staff, in one of its conditions, has regulated exactly what the facade provisions are, and we will comply with what staff has asked. I think it was 50% brick, stone or stucco on the front. I don't know if, Chris, you have that particular condition.
I'll find it.
I can read off here.
I could help you read it if you want. I think it's condition number 7. You're talking about the all-front building elevations shall be constructed with at least
Yes.
50%, that one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, of the following building materials: brick, indigenous rock, natural stone, and synthetic stone, or a combination thereof. Do you want me to read the rest of it?
No.
I think it's like 33 conditions that...
Right, and then there's, it continues on that if stucco of ephes is used, it has to be limited to a maximum of 10% of the total building wall, and then other structural material types that can be used. We are certainly open to massaging the facade requirements, but our intent is to comply with what staff has recommended.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wheeler?
We have one person to speak in opposition. That's Mr. George Kelichek.
Okay. Mr. Kelichek?
Good evening again to commissioners and the citizens of Rockdale County. With all due respect to the Battle Law firm PC, they're out of Tucker, Georgia. They are representing the developer, but let's talk about Rockdale County. Again, I want to bring a solution to you. Commissioners, you have seen this information in your packets that I've sent to you previously. We're not going to sit idly by and see our environment destroyed. Time out, please. Ms. Washington, I'm speaking. Would you pay respect to me, please?
Sir, if,
Excuse me, if you'll just keep on with your presentation,
Thank you.
please.
Can we reset the clock then?
No, let's continue
All
on.
right. Here is a solution. villagehabitat.com. They're headquartered in Decatur, Georgia. They do conservation communities around the world. And to look at preserving the environment in Rockdale County, I propose this solution, which you have seen before, along with Chairman Nesbitt. This is doing a conservation community. Let us not clear cut, as in this proposal is now, but let us have walking trails, a lake, a community garden for not rental units, but taxpayer units for Rockdale County.
Mr. Kelichick,
Hold your
please
applause,
focus on.
please. We're in the middle of a presentation. Thank you.
1 year ago, Steve Weinstein, our commissioner of the Planning and Zoning Commission, issued a letter to the Board of Commissioners to take time out, a 90-day moratorium, to let us see exactly what is going on in Rockdale County. That letter was ignored. Why have a Planning and Zoning Commission? So again, I will say, Ms. Washington emailed me approximately a year ago and said this would be a great concept for Rockdale County. But until this Board of Commissioners takes the opportunity to contact all developers that are coming into Rockdale County, they are going to continue to destroy this wonderful environment in Rockdale County. So, let us use our space wisely. Let us collect money, not from rental units, but from good taxpayers that will take care of our environment. Let us have a lake where residents can fish, children can play, have their own walking trails. Wouldn't this be nice? We need a new start in Rockdale County. We do not need any more apartments or high-density housing because it puts stress on 911, the police department, the fire department, the sheriff's department, the roads, all the infrastructure. So again, let's look at a 90-day moratorium, and let's get headed in a new direction for Rockdale County. So again, do you want to see clear-cut land? Or do you want to see wonderful green space that will support Rockdale
I've asked you to
County?
hold your applause. This is not the time for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. But again, let's take time out. Thank you for your time. I hope that you will decide with the chairman, along with the chairman of our Planning and Zoning Commission, Mr. Steve Weinstein, a PhD. He does have good information. Let's call a timeout. I'm not against development. We need good, solid environmental development in Rockdale County. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kelichick. Appreciate that. Mr. Wheeler.
That's everybody who wants to speak in opposition of this application.
Okay. Any rebuttal?
I have a question. This property is the property that if you're going 20, going east towards Augusta, the first exit is Sigmund Road. You exit Sigmund Road, you turn left, and it's the clear property that has absolutely nothing on it to the right.
Yes.
So there's no trees on it.
Yeah, a few, but not much.
It's pretty clear already.
Fairly.
Okay, thank you.
And I noticed that there's, what did I see, 2 areas of parks or
Yes.
preservation
Yes.
planned for that development.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can. I'm Mark Walton with Patrick and Associates. We are local surveyors and engineers. We're stakeholders in the county. We've been here for 50 years and plan on staying here. We're not from out of town. As Commissioner Washington noted, this property is probably 90% kudzu, and it has been that way for 25 years or longer. And at the very edge, up against the C2, there is some piney growth back there. But yes, you're correct. This is not going to destroy tons of beautiful trees. Going on to the question about the parks, at the northwest corner, we have a dog park. We put it closest to where the Georgia power line is. Actually, the easement gets over just a touch on this property. So we've got the dog park there, where there will be no construction in the future because of the power line. And additionally, we are surrounding it with a privacy fence. The applicant has offered up the privacy fence. Then going further along that northern property line, we'll have one of our stormwater management ponds. And then at the front corner, we have another park that can be, there could be some play equipment or benches, some sort of a active, passive park. Then centrally located within the commons there that Mr. Wheeler is circling for me, we've got a network of walkways around that. And within there, the developer has talked about building more benches and parks. And then just to the side, we have our little mail kiosk, which is orange colored, a little tiny box there, and some parking spaces for the residents. And the other blue creatures, those are more stormwater ponds. This property is very flat and just a little hilltop in the middle, and water's exiting in several directions, which is wonderful because we can have small, non-obtrusive ponds to control the runoff. No big steep slopes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Would you all be open to considering something like a community garden or something like that in one of the areas that for residents?
I don't think that would be
gather?
problematic. That would be fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. That closes the public hearing, I believe,
Thank you.
for this issue, 2294
I have one more question. I'm so sorry. The fencing, I'm really concerned about the fencing. So could you describe what the idea of
Well, the code indicates that if we put a privacy fence around the perimeter, that would assist with the C2 in terms of their not having to do the full 50-foot buffer on their side because we'd have a 25-foot privacy fence. So we were going to just do a 6-foot tall privacy fence around the perimeter.
Is this wooden?
Probably wooden, yes.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have to have the fence, but we were doing that as trying to be a good neighbor.
I mean, I understand. I just concerned about the overall upkeep of a fence and then the aesthetics of the fence. So I would want to really explore that so that if we do approve something like a fence, it would be something that won't become
an eyesore
an eyesore in the future.
Right. Well, we know that the property management company would be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of it, but I understand what you're saying, that you want a fence that will stand the test of time and look decent.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that closes the public hearing on that property. Let's move to item C, which is 0 Glen Road.
Yes, Commissioners. The next case.
Can we get like a 5-minute recess?
You want 5 minutes?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Mr. Chandler.
Okay, we're
could
going to
you
take a
answer
5-minute
Mr.
break.
Kolichak in the back? Could you answer Mr. Kolichak in the back? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening again,
Okay.
Commissioners.
Go ahead, Director Wheeler, Deputy Director Wheeler.
Yes, ma'am. Again, this next case is brought to you again is rezoning case 22-12 and future land use case 22-09. The applicant is Moore Bass Consulting. The applicant is looking to request and amend the future land use map from medium density residential to high density residential, and to rezone from R1 single family residential to residential multifamily for the development for 148 townhome units. The subject property is a total of 37.2 acres. Again, the zoning of this subject property is R1. The subject property is surrounded by R1 single-family zone properties, as well as R2. And then further to the west of the subject property are some light industrial zone properties, as well as north of the subject property too. This is the future land use map of the subject property. The star indicates the location of the subject property. Again, it has a medium density residential future land use character area. Abutting the subject properties, again, is the high density residential future land use character area. Further north of the subject property is again another area that has the high density residential character area. And then further to the west of the subject property are again areas with the light industrial, high density, and commercial. The areas in black indicate those are located in the city of Conyers.
Could you take just a minute and define for me the difference between medium density and high density?
Yes, ma'am. So medium density and high density all indicates the level of density as far as the units per acre a development could have. So for in our code, the future land use, so medium density indicates that a development should have, again, 1 to 2 units per acre, and then while high density is indicated as 3 to 4 units per acre for single-family detached homes. But the caveat for high density character areas that you're allowed to have multifamily developments in that character area as well. So high density, you can have single-family residential development, but also you can have multifamily such as townhomes and apartments in those areas. While indicating in medium density and low density, or they're just looking for just strictly single-family detached residential homes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Carry on.
This is an aerial map of the subject property. Again, the property is currently undeveloped with an existing water body located on it, as well as a stream on it. Located adjacent to the subject property is the Ball Rock Baptist Church. Located to the southern portion of the subject property is the Old Covington Junction subdivision. And again, located to the right of it is the Westbury Park subdivision. The applicant, the subject property does have frontage along Glen Road and Old Covington Road. To kind of give just a quick summary of the application, again, the applicant is looking to develop a 148 townhome unit. Again, the subject property is adjacent to existing multifamily and single-family developed properties. Again, it's located along a collector corridor, which is Old Covington, and the applicant is looking at a density of 4 units per acre. And again, there's an existing lake and floodplain on the property. Each department has provided technical analysis of this application. The only outstanding comment that staff was provided was the existing lake showing the existing lake on the subject property. Again, there is floodplain hatcheted on the property, as well as the stream buffer and future flood areas, as well as indicated on the site plan. As you can see, it covers probably a third of the main site, as well as crossed over Glen Road and to the other side of the area. This is a site plan of the proposed site plan of the development. Again, the applicant, just want to point out a few things. The applicant currently is showing on this concept plan that there are encroachment into the stream buffer and the floodplain. However, the applicant has indicated that they are not going to encroach into the floodplain or the stream buffers, so therefore they wouldn't have to apply for a stream buffer variance or seek some type of special approval from staff for his encroachment into the floodplain. The applicant has indicated that the entry onto the site will be from 2 points of entry, one again along Glen Road and the other against Old Covington Road. Also, we should point out that the applicant, since it is looking for a zoning classification of RM, there will be a required transitional buffer abutting the the church located to the west of it. That buffer is acquired 75 foot. That has to be included on their site, in their site plan, if this application does get approval. So therefore, staff did recommend approval of this application. However, the Planning Commission did recommend denial of this application based off the impacts what they believe proposed impact to the environment, which i.e. Their concerns of impact to the lake, floodplain, and stream.
Could you say that again, please?
So they recommend denial based off environmental factors. Again, the existing lake, the Planning Commission believe that the proposed development would impact that negatively.
Okay, and the staff recommended?
Approval with conditions. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And the applicant is here to give presentation as well.
Say that one more time, that last part.
Do you have any questions?
Yes. So, taking in consideration the concerns about the floodplain and the environment, did you all offer any suggestions to the applicant on what they could do to waylay some of those concerns about the
Yes, ma'am. We told them that, again, from their proposed concept plan, it looks like they're encroaching into the floodplain, into the stream buffer. Since they would have to go through our stormwater department regarding the encroachment of actually getting approval of those buffers, they would have to show how they would mitigate the impact onto the actual stream. The applicant indicated that would not be the case. They would change their site plan to move their development away from the floodplain and the buffer, not to try to negatively impact the stream at any point at any time.
Okay, thank you.
As I say, from the comments that we got from Stormwater is saying from just a cursory review of the concept plan, it looks like they're encroaching. Anything other than that, they would have to provide a stream buffer, which they would go in and so you need to offer mitigating factors, or say you need to offset the negative impact that would cause. What factors they would use, I do not know at this time. That probably would go through the permitting process if this application was approved.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So my question is, if it sits adjacent to a floodplain, would the homeowners be required to purchase flood insurance?
I would not know that. I would assume yes, ma'am, but I would not know. I'm not a real estate agent, so I could not tell you if that. I would assume somebody would, but I do not know.
Okay. The applicant looks really anxious to stand up and
Let's
talk.
move to the applicant presentation. That's good.
So because this is looking at a rezoning and a future land use change, each side, the applicant will have 20 minutes, and then there will be 20 minutes for the opposition also. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Let me get this right. Thank you. My name is Jennifer Chrisman. I'm Moorbass Consulting, and I am the engineer. And I want to start out right out the gate and be really specific. First of all, it is a concept plan, and we don't show anything in the buffers. What I explained in the Planning Commission as far as just the streams and wetlands, we have to get a full delineation. So we do a concept plan, we do based off of GIS maps, we take 50 feet, 75-foot buffers, and we do a concept plan. You guys give us a unit count, things that we would go for, and then once that environmental report is done, then I have defined lines and defined buffers, and I can promise you it's way more expensive to pay for mitigation than it is for me to just stay out of the buffers. So we have zero intent of going anywhere near floodplains and anywhere near streams and anywhere near wetlands. So just want to make that right off the bat, crystal clear on that. There are 37 roughly acres. If you noticed, everything east, there's like 10 acres east of Glen Road. That won't be touched. We're not touching the existing lake. Again, it gets back to streams, buffers, all of that will be delineated. We will lay it out. We are going to be townhomes, 148 of them. That is a density of roughly 4 per acre. And back to what Mr. Wheeler said earlier with your question on density, this is I think it's 4.3 units per acre, which is what it would be if it was a single family. So yes, with multifamily, we do have a higher option of units per acre, but because we're giving 26 acres of open space, because we do really, the reason that our client is looking at this site is because of the beauty of it. The last thing we want to do is go and impact and make it worse. We want walking trails around that lake. We have a beautiful amenity area around that lake. We want to keep this as pristine as possible. So just want to hit that right off the gate. Next, please. Again, this is just a zoom in off of Glen Road. In the Planning Commission, there was questions about traffic and sight distance because it is a narrow road on Glen Road. So we are already proposing, without a traffic study, because that'll come as it's part of our conditions, a right in, right out, so that there's not even any way that people would have to try to turn left. Also, we are proposing, again, this could change based on what we find on our environmental report, an amenity area adjacent. Because again, we want our homeowners and landowners to be able to actually use that lake and use it for, what it's intended for. Next, please. Across the land, so we would have, as I just discussed, we would have a right in, right out off of Glen Road, and then our main entrance would be off of Old Covington Road. This across in the blow up to the right, bottom right of the slide, is how everything goes down to a lift station on the adjacent property. That's how we would just serve for sewer. So I was just showing that if we have utilities along Old Covington and then sewer on the east side of us. Next, please. This will look familiar. Back in, I think, March or April of this year, we did a very similar around the corner off of Old Covington and Dogwood Drive. It's going to be the same developer, same style unit. Again, just like Michelle Battle had mentioned earlier, part of our conditions do determine what percentage of brick and materials that we would use in those units. But this is just an idea of what our client has in store. And then the last one, I think. And again, just a street view of that. These are, of course, these will not be rentals. They will be sold. So there will be all 148 units sold. And our average square foot is about 1,600 to 1,800 square foot. And our average price point is about $315 to $340. So.
I'm sorry, what was the average square foot?
16 to
1,800 square feet.
Okay. Any questions?
No, I don't have.
Okay. All right.
We-
So do we have any?
Yes, ma'am. We have
Opposition.
we have 4 people speaking in opposition.
Okay.
The first person is Mr. Martin Brody.
Okay. So we need to start it at 20 minutes again.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Brody?
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Commissioners. My name is Martin Brody, and I live at 280 Glen Road on a pond with 3 other homeowners adjacent to the 37-acre parcel. Morebass Consulting, Inc. is requesting approval to rezone from R1 to RM to build 148 townhomes, which would bookend Glen Road with 2 high-density residential developments totaling approximately 400 units. One already underway on Glen Road that's only 9/10 of a mile long, with 2 different ingresses, egresses, less than a half a mile apart. Our multiracial, Glen Road's single-family neighborhood argues that this proposal is not consistent with your comprehensive plan, pursuant to, quote, preserve, enhance, and protect the character of existing residential neighborhoods. As you may already know from my previous emails, I'm qualified to address wetland issues on my property and my neighbors' properties because I'm a retired environmental plant and soil scientist who worked for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Waterways Experiment Station, Environmental Research and Simulation Laboratory in Vicksburg, Mississippi, the hub of wetlands research addressing waters of the United States, WOTUS, from 1977 to 1984. Please refer to the handouts that I provided that Jennifer gave y'all, specifically the National Wetlands Inventory Map. Do y'all have that? I need y'all to look at that because I don't have advantage of an overhead because I was asked not to do this. Ms. Washington, do you have one in front of you?
I do.
You see the map?
Are you looking at the one that says National Wetlands
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Inventory 2?
Yes, ma'am. That's it. Okay. Part of the 37-acre parcel includes Smith Pond. Smith Pond is a pond on Glen Road. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service National Wetlands Inventory Map, which is 90% accurate in identifying wetlands, Smith Pond and our pond, Golden Pond, are classified as PUBHH wetlands protected under the Clean Water Act, administered by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and enforced by the Georgia Environmental Protection Division for the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. Wetland inventory maps are used by private citizens, fish and wildlife managers, and local units of government. These maps are used to assess the need for wetland permits, evaluate the completeness of permit applications, identify wetlands that might be impacted by proposed development projects, screen for development constraints, estimate potential wetland mitigation costs, and assess the quantity and quality of habitat for wetland-dependent species, like the mating pair of blue heron that live on that pond, and the loons that live on that pond, and the beaver that live on that pond, as well as the turtles and snakes and all the other animals. 3 species of ducks, a diving duck, the kingfishers that dive into that pond to eat fish. All those animals depend on it. The National Wetland Inventory Map is not a jurisdictional wetland determination. The NWI is a planning and assessment tool that indicates a high probability of the presence of wetlands and is used as a guide by wetland professionals to identify jurisdictional wetlands and guide their on-site wetland delineations. It may be helpful in determining whether wetland-related permits may be needed for activities in a specific location. Please note how the creeks that empty into our pond and connect it to Smith Pond are also identified within a 90% probability of being riverine wetlands, quote, as well as the adjacent PF01/4A freshwater forested shrub wetland that empties into the Yellow River watershed. According to your Regulatory Compliance Code of Ordinances, Section 324-2, Protection of Wetlands, A, Purpose and Intent, pursuant to OCGA 12-2-8, this section establishes regulations to promote the wise use of wetlands and protect them from alterations that will significantly affect or reduce their primary functions for water quality, floodplain and erosion control, groundwater recharge, acidic natural areas, and wildlife habitat areas. B, wetlands development permit requirements. Furthermore, if the area of proposed development is within 100 feet of the wetlands boundaries, as established by figure Roman numeral 4-2 of the Rockdale County Comprehensive Land Use Plan, a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers delineation is required as a condition of a Section 404 permit. Local permits will not be issued until after any necessary Section 404 permits have been secured. Please refer to the images of our pond at Smith Pond polluted with stormwater runoff. and I have several there. Okay, this is what happened this year from the site, the Rockland site, on the other side of us. As you're also aware from my previous emails, in February, March, and April, our federally protected wetland pond, federally protected wetland Smith Pond, federally protected, and the federally protected riverine wetland creeks that enter and exit them were polluted with stormwater runoff 5 different days from the Rockland Homes development site because the developer, David Jenkins, was out of compliance with best management practices, which Rockdale Stormwater Deputy Director Cabal Johnson personally told me when we walked the draws, which emptied from the site onto our downhill properties, that the developer engineer's design didn't comply with BMPs and was BS. After Googling Rockland Homes and David Jenkins, I learned that he bribed Gwinnett County Commissioner Kevin Kennerly with $1 million to buy land to build a high-density development. I thought that was an interesting coincidence. In 2020, I argued in front of the Planning Committee and BOC and was quoted in the Rockdale Citizen that we were in danger of stormwater runoff. The Planning Committee denied the rezoning request twice, and it was tabled to the Board of Commissioners, who approved it. I thought that was an interesting coincidence. What do you think that did to our federally protected wetland pond's water quality? Because our pond empties into Smith Pond, which is approximately 1,000 feet from the Rockland Home site, currently underway right now, it was polluted 5 different times as well. What do you think that did to the federally protected wetland Smith Pond's water quality? According to the National Association of Wetland Managers, Georgia State Wetland Program summary, quote, Georgia relies on Section 401 water quality certification of the Federal Clean Water Act to regulate wetlands statewide. Section 401 water quality certification provides protection for the state's non-tidal wetlands, administered by the EPD for the GADNR. Enforcement mechanisms under the state's water quality laws apply to wetlands statewide. Violations to state water quality provisions may result in civil penalties of up to $50,000 per day of violation. Penalties may be doubled for violations from the same party within a 1-year period. Violations are typically investigated initially by regional EPD staff, but may proceed to higher levels of investigation depending on the level of compliance. According to my calculations, someone owes the state of Georgia $1 million for 5 violations of the Clean Water Act, resulting in the pollution of 2 wetlands on 2 different properties, which I documented that occurred 5 different times within a 1-year period. Please notice the Moorbass site plan. Do you see a 100-foot wetland boundary? Code of Ordinances, Section 324-2, Protection of Wetlands, between Moorbass Consulting Inc.'s proposed site plan in Smith Pond, or the wetland creeks that empty into our pond in Smith Pond? Do you know how to read a topo map? Please notice how the site plan is superimposed on a U.S. Geological Survey topo map. Each line represents a 10-foot contour interval. Please count those contour intervals. Please notice how the proposed site sits 100+ feet above 2 federally protected wetlands, our pond and Smith Pond. Please notice how close those contour intervals are, which signifies steep slopes, deep draws, and a ravine that empty into both wetlands. What do you think is going to happen if you approve the rezoning request and a developer cuts down all the trees on the 100-foot hillside and bulldozes the soil on the steep slopes and deep draws that empty into 2 wetlands, and we have more heavy rain and stormwater events, which Rockdale County has a history of during January through April? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think double silt fences like the ones Rockland Homes use is going to prevent the wetlands from being polluted again? Look at those photos. Images speak 1,000 words. That's really all I need to show y'all. I shouldn't even be up here arguing and just show you those images of what has already happened by this site that's going on right now that y'all approved when the Planning Committee denied it twice. I argue it'll be a nightmare for the Stormwater Department, resulting in more violations of the Clean Water Act by failing to follow your comprehensive plan. To quote, maintained the distinction between conservation areas and developed areas, and, quote, designed the necessary programs and regulations to protect and preserve open space and sensitive lands throughout the county in a coordinated way. I also argue the county and/or developer are going to find themselves in hot water with the GAEPD and potentially owe the state of Georgia and the property owners of our federally protected wetland pond a very expensive water quality bill / polluted stormwater trespass punitive damages settlement because of their negligence. Yesterday, I spoke with Brian Boutelle. Brian's the program manager with GAEPD. He's been following this via emails that I've sent to you and filed a complaint for multiple violations of Section 401 of the Clean Water Act by polluting 2 federally protected wetlands, and he told me that he was opening a case and would be contacting the county. In closing, I'd like to quote Chairman Nesbitt, which he is not here tonight. Is there a reason why? A good reason?
Go ahead and continue with your...
In closing, I'd like to quote Chairman Nesbitt from a 2021 article in the Atlanta Small Business Network, quote, so we've shined the spotlight on stormwater management to make sure from an infrastructure standpoint that we make sure that those waterways and streams can flow properly through our community and does not impact residences in a very negative way. I respectfully request that you deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brody. Okay, next.
Mr. George Kellicek.
Good evening again.
Good evening. Let me just remind you, I haven't said anything before, but your presentation is entirely to the board, not to the citizens or the audience at all.
I will check with the Attorney General's office in those regards. Thank you. In regards to this opposition, first of all, I would like to say that on the epd.georgia.gov website regarding FEMA floodplains, if this community, this proposed community, if they do not participate in the National Flood Insurance Act of 1968, then all the residences in that development, flood insurance will not be available. 2, no federal grants or loans for the acquisition or construction of buildings may be made in identified flood hazard areas. No federal disaster assistance may be provided to repair insurable buildings located in identified flood hazard areas. 4, no federal mortgage insurance or loan guarantee may be provided in identified flood hazard areas. I would respectfully ask that you deny this request and let us have a lot farther investigation and everyone and all citizens educate themselves regarding this particular development. Also, going back to my solutions, Pendergrass Farms, which was one of the conservation communities in Decatur, it was sold out prior to development. This is what citizens want. This is what they're looking for. Why do you think it was sold out prior to even breaking ground? The mention about no rentals, again, I'm a real estate developer and real estate investor for over 40 years. Who's going to control no rentals of these apartments? Who? Who has the jurisdiction? So I don't believe, as a real estate investor, I have an opportunity to buy any piece of property I want to. There would have to be special conditions in the covenants regarding that. But again, who is going to regulate that and check every month to make sure there's no rentals of all of these units? I would totally disagree regarding no rentals. And I think as an investor, well, I know that investors will buy these units and then they become rental units. Is that what we want in Rockdale County? Or do we want taxpayers to help us grow in good environmental ways and obey the laws of the state of Georgia and the United States government? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Wheeler, next.
Dr. Sharon Carter.
Good evening to the panel.
Good evening.
I'm Dr. Sharon Carter. I'm a resident here of Rockdale County, 2162 Blueberry Lane. I'm going to speak to you from the perspective of a public educator. Rockdale County has 18 schools. The enrollment is 15,692 students. The student-teacher ratio is roughly 15-1 and regularly increasing. Someone mentioned earlier that there was a report from the board stating that every school has open classrooms. That's true, because they cannot find teachers to fill those classrooms. And building more multifamily homes will only increase the risk of not getting teachers. Another reason is because the salary for Rockdale County teachers is not among the highest in the state, which is not attractive to getting teachers to our school district. Our teachers are among the great resignation that's taking place in our country. People don't want to teach anymore, but the students are regularly coming. They will be overcrowding our schools. We owe it to them to give them the best education that we can. And if the classrooms are overcrowded, our teachers won't be able to do that. Therefore, students from our multifamily housing, that they will be entering our schools and impacting them very significantly. It will increase student-teacher ratio, causing classes to be overcrowded, discipline to increase, and the level of our children receiving the best education they can to also decrease. So I ask you this evening to deny the proposal at 0 Glen Road, if not for us, for our most important stakeholders, that being our teachers, and most importantly, our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Wheeler?
Miss Nancy Champion.
Miss Nancy Cannon? Oh, okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just wanted to say that I haven't lived in Rockdale County all that long, but I agree with everything that's been said tonight. This needs to be denied. There's too much traffic up and down Glen Road as it is. You're going to add another 300 cars if you've got 2 people per house out there. And the impact on these creeks, you're not going to be able to repair wetlands once they're gone. And if you start building on those hills and cutting those trees, it's going to leak into the other lakes, to the rivers, to the streams, to the ponds. And if you start building and making all that noise, all the birds and all the wildlife that's out there is going to leave because it's too noisy. They don't have any space now. We need to look out for our future of our children, of our wildlife, of our trees, and everything that we're killing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next, Mr. Wheeler?
Mona Lisa Sharp.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
My name is Mona Lisa Sharp, and I live in the Point Royal subdivision of Glen Road in Rockdale County. I've been here now going on 3 years, and I have a few points that I would like to raise. One of them is about how local governments, towns, cities counties and states have a responsibility to ensure public health, safety, and welfare is at the forefront. New development and rezoning projects include the review of potential traffic impacts. So because of new developments, typically it generates additional vehicle trips that will use public roads. So my concern is about the traffic impacts, how these studies usually provide a review of existing conditions, the proposed development, site access, and circulation. And also, they provide review of effects of new trips on roadways and intersections. So with this being said, the development, if approved, will bring about an additional 148 townhomes on top of the 250 condos at Glen and Gees Mills Road, totaling approximately 400 units. Each unit will have an average of 2 cars, and if you multiply 400 by 2, that's 800 additional cars. So this will bottleneck Gees Mills Road on Sigmund, as well as Old Covington.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Your time has ended.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please don't approve.
Do we have a rebuttal from the applicant?
Maybe. Can you hear me? Is that good? I'll actually kind of go in reverse. I agree. I'm sorry. Is it Ms. Sharp? We will gladly talk to you afterwards if you'd like to and make sure we hear your concerns since you ran out of time. Absolutely, a TIS is part of our conditions. We and our developer will do everything that is recommended in that. We work with staff. That is 100% part of our analysis for sure. As far as schools, I know that was, of course, ours is going to be a 3-bedroom apartments. It's going to be geared towards professionals, but obviously, you know, we can't dictate who is buying that home, so we can't do the schools part of it. And my parents were teachers, so I have a heart for teachers as well, so I understand that plea. I will speak as far as the environmental. I know I started my presentation with that. I know 100% I actually agree with all of the Army Corps information that Mr. Brody shared. That is absolutely accurate, and that's why I shared that the last thing that our client wants to do is do any impacts. Number one, right now, a current wetland credit, if we did impact a small portion of wetlands in this basin that we're in at Glen Road, it's currently $950,000 a credit. So that's how high because of this basin being so protected. So we understand that, and that is part of what our environmental report will find is exactly where those wetlands are, exactly what our buffers are, exactly what our Army Corps restrictions are so that we can have the buffers that are required by law. So that is part of me as a professional engineer when I prepare the plans is to engage environmental report for that fact. So that was the main thing. Is there? Yes. And yes. My client said to remind you, it is townhomes and not apartments. So we are going to be sold, not rented. So,
okay.
And that will be in the covenants. I think, I'm sorry, I don't know if I wrote the name of whose the concern was, but the covenants, that is part, and it is part of our conditions. We are limited. We can't do rentals. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Washington, you have some questions?
Yes. I'm very nervous about the fact that it is so close to wetlands. It is so close to a floodplain. It is so close to, it has, a lake that has been utilized by our residents that we're in, tampering with the sanctity of that. So is there any way that we can get the environmental impact study before we make a determination on the rezoning? Because I would hate to put the condition that we rezone this, and we've done that, and then somebody, so once we rezone something, it's there into perpetuity until it's rezoned. And what I don't want to do is do anything that affects such a pristine part of our county into perpetuity without knowing how it is going to forever impact the county. So is there any way that we can get those studies before we make this decision?
I was going to say getting the study won't be a problem. I want to make sure my client. Yeah. Okay. It would probably take 2 to 3 weeks for us to be able to do that report. Would it be possible for us to just shift to the next month?
So what could be possible is on November 8th, the board will have the second reading of all of these ordinances that are presented tonight. If you don't have what it is the board is looking for, they could defer it to their December meeting and then make a decision at that time.
And then we would just go directly to the second hearing for December or whatever date that would be?
It would be a hearing. This is the second and final hearing on these items that are here tonight. And then what will happen next, it will go to the Board of Commissioners for their vote, which is the second read. And so that would be November the 8th. And if the requirements that they're asking for are not provided by the time that they vote on November 8th, they could elect to defer it to December.
Okay.
I think that probably all three of us would like to see that report done.
Okay. I don't know. I was like, I don't think that was me. I don't know who was making the sound.
Thank you very much. Sure. Do you have something else?
No, I was just making sure I answered you guys' questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that closes the public hearing for item C. And we will now go into item D, which is 2051 Highway 138. It is also a rezoning case and a future land use map case, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The applicant is Planners and Engineers Collaborative. Again, they are asking to amend the future land use map from medium density residential to high density residential, and also to looking to rezone the subject properties from R1 single family and light industrial limited to residential multifamily. For the record, there are two parcels, which I'll read into the record, 09001003B and 09001003, for a total of 25.26 acres. This is, again, there's aerial map, zoning map of the subject property. Again, it has the zoning character of the limited light industrial, and then has a small sliver of it is single family residential zone district. Located to the north of the subject property and to the east are zoned single family residential zone property as well. This is the future land use map of the subject property. Again, it has a future land use character area of medium density. Located to the east of the subject property is medium density residential. Located further south is light industrial, as well as the city of Conyers, and located to the north of it is office institutional character area. This is the aerial map of the subject property, again, to get you a better idea of where the property is located. Again, the subject property has frontage along Highway 138. Located to the north of it, of the subject property, is the First Baptist of Conyers, and then located to the east of it is the Mount Valley Estates subdivision. Currently, the subject property has an old existing paintball facility on it, as well as a single-family home on it as well. Just a quick summary of the actual application. Again, the applicant is looking to do 215-unit townhome development. Again, as we already mentioned, there's an existing paintball and outdoor recreation facility on the property. There's an existing creek located to the southern portion of the subject property. Again, the property is abutting existing single-family residential zone development, as well as industrial zone property that is located in the city limits of Conyers. Again, access points are along Highway 138. This is a proposed site plan of the application. To give a few details of the development, the applicant has indicated that will be two styles of townhomes. There will be a front entry and rear entry. There will be 34 units that will actually be rear entry, while there will be 181 units that will be front entry. They are looking at a density of 8.51 units per acre. The rezoning, if approved, they can go up to 12 units per acre. They have an open space of 3.6 acres, which they're provided, which they're well above the minimum requirement for RM, for residential multifamily zoning classification. They're looking at a minimum of 1,200 units to a maximum of 1,400 square feet units as well. This again, just to get a little bit more information again for the subject property. Again, they're looking at a density of 12 units per acre. They're looking at a density of 8.5 units per acre. They're also, again, minimum floor area would be 1,200 square feet. I apologize. Staff did recommend approval of this application, and the Planning Commission did recommend denial of this application. And the applicant is here if you have any questions, if you're ready for the applicant, or if you have any questions of staff.
Okay, thank you. So we'll open the public hearing then by hearing from the applicant, and they will have 20 minutes.
Before I start, I have copies of the presentation. Do you guys want each of those? Is that allowed?
That's fine.
Thank you so much. Kenneth Wood, 350 Research Court, Peachtree Corners, Georgia. Kind of going to walk through the site and go over kind of a lot of the comments you heard about why this is the right site for this type of use, and go through the future land use map about how it sets up. We were previously approved in the July hearing, and then with the signage, we came back and got a denial on the second time. And I believe the reason was they mentioned about stormwater. So I want to make sure I address that as well tonight about how we're preparing that. The Lucas family's had this site since the 40s, so a long time that it's had there. It's been looked at. Brad Johnson's with me tonight. He was one of the most recent developers that was trying to put a 325,000 square foot industrial facility, because that's what it's zoned today, on the site. The family had decided over all these years, after having a lot of different proposals for industrial and commercial, that wasn't the fit that they wanted. As the proposal from TPA, who's with me tonight, who's a very renowned multifamily developer, decided to go for a residential use, and that this was the right transition, that's when the family decided to sell. We've also looked at, there's a tract of land that I'll talk about. If you can go to the next slide. There's one tract of land.
Can I stop you for just a minute? The slide says transitional residential property. So could you explain what they're meaning by transitional?
I can. I've got a slide that shows over it that'll be up in just a second, and okay. I'll run through that completely. I looked to again because we heard a lot, not so much on ours, but on some of the other cases, we heard a lot about the schools last week when we were up talking. So I went back and asked the people at our office to re-update them, and these were the remaining seats left to show that there is capacity at the schools. There was a lot of indication that there was no capacity at the last hearing. So our development is further to the east. There's so much that is more west, more kind of north. Ours is further to the east as you go out 138, kind of getting toward the end of the county, and there's not a This is definitely a much needed type of housing out in this area. If you can go to the next slide, I'll kind of talk about that transition. And I've got several different slides to look at, but you can kind of see this. So about half the property is cleared, and it's a little bit deceiving even looking at an aerial. When you go out there, there's a paintball facility that's closed down, but if you actually go into all those woods on the bottom, it's like a minefield. There's all kind of stuff in the trees, and so they've killed, a lot of stuff is not healthy just from the area that they used, I guess, for the war areas is kind of going through there. We have a creek on the site that we located. We have actually finished all the different studies that you'll see. We've talked to GDOT about a full access curb cut so that we can line up with the subdivision across, because we have plenty distance from the west to that full access, as well as plenty difference to the east. And so our talks with GDOT has been positive about being able to open that up as a curb cut for this location. In addition to that, kind of talking about the transition, if you can go to the next slide. This is a little bit closer area. You have a lot of industrial that surrounds us completely on the south as well to the west, and then you start getting into commercial and retail, then industrial and kind of auto body from there. And so you can see the single family that we have there, and I'll talk about our buffers. But this site, when you're looking at the future land use map, even the sites that are auto body and heavy industrial, the future land use map was showing a medium density residential, and obviously with the single family being that and the industrial being so heavy, this is the natural site for that transition to a higher density in townhomes for the way that it lives, and the fact that it all fronts on Highway 138, and our second access point is going to go through industrial, so no residential detached type areas. If you can go to the next slide. Thought it was a slide.
Oh.
I've got a jump drive.
Yep.
Would that be better?
Yep.
And we've got since you guys have the maps, I'll kind of continue on. You'll have the next one, which shows the future land use. And so you can see all those properties that are slated for that medium density just to our west side. Those are actually heavy industrial, body shop, as well as retail. And so you can see where the medium density goes off to our east, and then we have the heavy industrial just to our south. That's why we definitely see this as a transition piece of property in the right place for townhomes when you're looking. The next slide that we have shows the existing zoning, and you can see it's all industrial. The one thing I wanted to be able to describe tonight is, because there was some questions last week about it, is there is one home on the property that's been there forever, and it has a little sliver of residential, and then it's basically a little block. And so if you actually see it on the survey that Mark Walton did with us, you actually can see that it's one tract of land landlocked in the back that makes up about just under an acre, then the whole rest of the land is industrial. And so if you see that on the plan, that's what that little bit of R1 is on the plan. If you can go to the next one, show you the map. And so what we did is, it's not part of the zoning, but there is 26 acres that we show there in yellow that is owned by the city that would become part of the site. It would be joined together. That's where we can put walking trails, be able to put the stormwater management there. It actually gives us the ability to tie a road into that cul-de-sac so that we can actually get to the light as a secondary means of access for the property. And so our access would go through that industrial if needed, if you needed to get to the light, or you can come out on 138, which is that major transportation corridor. Like I said, the frontage, we have a lot of everything fronting on 138 from the public view would be all rear loaded, and I'll show you what those look like as you're rolling down. And so this is a Class A, this is a $60 million development, and so everything will be very high end, and I'll show you the insides of those, but this would have a major clubhouse, it would have a major pool amenity, it would have your dog park, your paw spa, as they call them now. It would have your outdoor areas. Like I said, once we link into that site, we have a lot of areas for walking trails. That site would not get developed. And so that site would remain undisturbed and just be part of the property, but not zoned, just leave it as is today. I had some dimensions here. We are protected from the industrial, which we like. We have 50-foot buffers against the residential, even larger buffers on the north from the residential because there's a creek that splits the property, plus the 50-foot buffer. We have buffers that we self-imposed on the west side from the auto body shop in that area. And then you can see that dimension. We're over 400 feet, so more than a football field from that industrial facility on the south in looking at there. Have several stormwater ponds. Hearing a lot of comments tonight, I'm super familiar with how we need to do that. The new ordinance that you guys have with runoff reduction, controlling the first 1 inch, you can't let it go. Being able to have your ponds. When it comes to erosion, the only way to control erosion is volume. You can't you're not going to rely on silt fence. You have to have ponds large enough to hold the water, to let it settle out the solids before it goes downstream. on it. And looking at the plan, if you can go to the next slide, these are the front of the units. Those are the rear loads, so that's what everything from the public would see going through. It has the substantial materials, board and bat, hardy shake, stone, all the cementitious, and I believe there's a zoning condition of that from there. You also have the front loaded units that are the same. They're going to have the brick that are on the next slide, and really the next 5 slides kind of show you the amenities and the different interiors of the units. If you can roll through those, Chris, for the next 5. So this shows the different type of courts and granite that would be used in the facilities, as far as all stainless, the hardwood floors, everything that you would see in a very high-end detached home. This would be images of the clubhouse and the pool that would surround the development. So you'd have a resort-style pool, and you'd also have some of the different common areas. And if you can go back up to the rendering of the site and looking, the rents would be over $2,000 per month. This is not targeted for children. TPA does a lot of this. There's not amenities for children. There's not playgrounds for children right now in some of their communities. He was mentioning to me that sometimes they're getting about 15%, maybe families. But what's happening really across the country is you're seeing that with rents going so high on new, really upscale product, that if you're a family, most of the time you're renting a single family home that you can rent, because there's so many people renting single family homes at this point in today when you look at it. And so we're not anticipating to have a impact on the schools for there. We have 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. That mixture, 40% 2s and the 60% 3s. As you're looking at it. So we want to have that balance so that there's different sizes, not just all one size like you see so much in the townhome developments as you go through. Everything has 2-car garages, and we have about 72 guest parking spaces throughout this to make sure we have ample amount of room, not only for the amenity, but also for guest parking throughout, because as you're looking at townhomes, that's always a big deal to make sure you have enough guest parking for this area and to be able to go around. And with that, I can reserve any amount of time and take any questions you guys may have about the project.
So these are being built intended for rentals, is that correct?
Yeah, so TPA, when we looked at this area of the county, there's a big need. There's not a housing for choice that you can have a purpose-built townhome development that from the start, not trying to hide anything, purpose-built rental development. Like I said, they're looking to sink in the equivalent of about a $350,000 townhome into these. It's what they're building. The only difference is you're going to have a management company that always keeps all the facades, all the roofs, all the landscape areas, the frontage, everything to be maintained at a high area, like you've seen the really, really upscale multifamily. This is just a different way to live, and it's housing by choice. And so we really believe that empty nesters and young professionals, because these are 2 stories and not 3 stories, that this is going to be very much that desired type of living to be able to there. You can lock and go. You have all your amenities. You have your gym here. You don't need to go to LA Fitness. So the idea here is to be able to live on the site, connect, have good access to 138 to the job market, or if you work out of your house, being able to have an office in the house. And so it's definitely a choice that so many people are making. So we're just trying to build a purpose-built high-end facility.
Okay. Commissioner Washington, you have questions?
I don't have any questions. He answered all of the questions I know.
Okay, yeah, I know. I was jotting notes, and he answered them as we went along. Okay, thank you.
So do we have anyone signed up to speak for public comment?
Yes, ma'am, we have several. The first person is, I apologize for saying your last name wrong, Ms. Barbara Jaquith.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is my first visit with you folks, and I just have to say something I wasn't planning on saying, and that is I'm just totally inspired and heartened by the speakers who came before me. especially on the subject of the impact that all of this development is having on the environment as well as our schools. That really, those speakers spoke to my heart. I live in the Mountain Valley Estates that you just saw the depiction of. And we are adjacent to the proposed development. And I come here to you tonight with 16, if I counted right, 16 other members of our community. And believe it or not, we just found out about this about 48 hours ago. So I hope that that says something about the level of concern that this raised. This is a massive project. When I was working, I always hated it when somebody came to speak at one of my meetings and would say, you know what I did before I retired? But you know what I did before I retired? I work for a very large property management company, and I'm super well aware of developer speak and how projects are described and how good it can sound. But it's really important to dig into the details that are behind that really carefully. And so I want to emphasize that some of our folks here tonight were comfortable speaking and some not so much, but I'm comfortable saying that I speak for all 16 who came. And there will be others who come up and speak behind me. But we are of one mind, and we are deeply concerned about this development. It directly abuts some of us. In general, our concerns mirror those that are outlined in the justification of the request section of the application. I had a chance to really quickly look at that. What you're asking the developer or the applicant to justify is exactly what we're concerned about, almost to the letter. I just want to speak to the issue of adequate notice. We truly just found out about this. Maybe it was properly noticed. I'm not arguing that, but there's the one sign on 138. It's placed right near the road. There's not really a safe place to pull off. I think I did unconsciously drive by it and go, I wonder what that is, or oh, I wonder what that is. But I couldn't pull off because it's 138 just before the light by the paintball place. It's too dangerous. There's no sidewalks. There's no way to go and see that particular notice. It was word of mouth that got us all here tonight. So our goal for the evening, I think, tonight is to respectfully request that the committee allow us adequate time to do some homework and learn some more and get some information. And I have no idea what the protocol is for voting on this, but we're just requesting some time, that maybe you don't make a decision right away, that you defer a decision until we can get ourselves up to speed about this very, very large project that is really going to impact. And the speakers behind me, we tried to organize and use your time wisely. They're going to be more specific than I'm being, but that's the overview. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Mr. George Kelichek.
In response to this development, just wanted to comment on a couple of items. A lot of people have talked about Rockdale County Public School System this evening. In the latest Rockdale Citizen newspaper, the state graduation rate is 84.1% for 2022. Rockdale County decreased all the way down to 81.2%. You know, I'm 65 years old. My birthday candles cost more than a daggone cake. So I think I've got a little experience here regarding development and being a real estate investor for over 40 years in the state of Georgia and the state of Florida. I personally, along with my company, we do the right thing. We look at the future. I'm going to ask you, take a ride down Flat Shoals and Salem Road and look at those townhome developments that were put in 30 years ago. And tell me in 30 years that these proposed developments will not look like this. It's going to be hard to believe, folks. Members of the Eye of the Taxpayer Association, you know, our average income here in Rockdale County is $62,000 a year. How's somebody going to afford a $2,000 a month rent? Plus, you know, we're paying now an extra $493 a month for goods and services and groceries. I just don't see it happening. As far as rental units, again, who is going to control, and I know these are proposed rentals, but who's going to control all of these activities at this development is the real key question. Is it going to improve Rockdale County and bring more tax dollars and taxpayers to Rockdale County? You know, right now we have over 3,200 units that have been approved per the Planning Commission, and we're looking now at an additional 400 and some units tonight. Folks, we've got to take a time out. Like Steve Weinstein said a year ago to this commission and wrote a letter, and you still have refused to take a time out to review all of these items as a whole. So again, the members of the Taxpayer Association members are in opposition to this request. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Wheeler?
Ms. Sheila Hanna.
Could you say that again?
Ms. Sheila Hanna.
Sheila Hanna?
I was supposed to go, they got them out of order. Mr. Gandy first.
There's no specific order.
I have requested a present. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to make this short because I wasn't planning on speaking. I just have a question about the paintball business. Both these gentlemen both said that it was closed. My question to you is, when did it close? Not to you, to them. When did it close? Because they are only open on weekends. I've been advised that people come from around the southeast region to come to this business. So I don't want you to think that it is closed. I put a call out to the gentleman once I realized they were both saying that it was closed, but the business didn't answer, so I'll wait for a phone call tomorrow. But that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Ms. Elizabeth DeGiff.
For the record, my name's pronounced DeGive.
I apologize.
That's okay, you wouldn't know. I appreciate the opportunity tonight to raise my concerns about the zoning changes requested for this proposed development. I have several concerns about how this change would affect my neighborhood as to increased noise, effects on the existing community, more water damage issues due to the impermeable surfaces, which is already an issue in that area of the county. However, the biggest concern I have is with the increase in traffic and the dangers that would cause. At the previous Planning Commission meeting, it was stated there had not yet been a survey or recommendations from Georgia DOT on this proposal. I don't know when in the process that would occur, but the impact of traffic is a great concern. I've lived in Mountain Valley Estates for over 35 years, and of course there have been many changes during that time, most noticeably with the traffic. Highway 138 was changed prior to the Olympics to a 4-lane divided highway with minimum median breaks in preparation to allow for increased traffic. Since then, the traffic just continues to increase. There's continued growth in the nearby industrial park, multiple warehouses. There are filming studios and cast members coming in to be part of those productions. There's increase in large truck transportation up and down that main corridor, even a trucking school nearby. And especially there's been more increase in emergency traffic with the nearby fire station that sends out vehicles multiple times a day, as well, of course, the hospital being nearby. The speed limit in that area changes to 55 miles an hour north of Sigmund Road. And of course, that results in vehicles traveling much faster than that up and down 138 in this area. The highway has several blind curves. It also has one just north of this development, as well as hills that limits the visibility of upcoming traffic. There are some median breaks with the options of U-turns, but they are risky moves, due to the highway speed. There are only 2 traffic lights between Sigmund Road and the Horse Park, and they are set on timers to encourage free flow of traffic with minimal interruptions. Needless to say, all this contributes to a greater risk of accidents. The latest online data posted from 3 years ago shows that 138 North Corridor has one of the highest rate of fatal accidents in the county. Given all that, it stands to reason that changing zoning to allow a development of over 200 units that would add several hundred more cars to the road would only increase the dangers to the traffic. In conclusion, I ask you to reject the rezoning proposal due to the dangerous effect it will have on safe travel in this congested highway. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Mr. Robert Gandy.
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
Commissioners.
Good evening.
My name is Robert Gandy. It's G-A-N-D-Y. Most times, at the time when I introduce myself, shortly after that, I hear myself referred to as Mr. Candy.
We'll get it right. We got you.
But I reside at 1294 Pine Knoll Lane, Northeast, Conyers. And just for clarity, we are not in the city of Conyers. That's the post office's idea to call us Conyers. We are outside the city limits of Conyers. I have a few questions, and I'm not certain whether it's appropriate to ask the type of questions I have in mind. So if it's not, please let me know. I'm sure you will.
Well, I will tell you that it's not really a question and answer time. It's really a public hearing. But I suspect that Mr. Wheeler will stay after and answer your questions.
Okay, well, that's fair. That's fair. First, I want to share an observation that might be of interest to you. That's not a question, that's an observation, okay?
Yes,
when the public hearing notice sign appeared on Highway 138, I think someone has already mentioned it was very difficult to read at 55 miles an hour, 2 lanes away from it. But when I saw the words public hearing, I thought I better find some way to see what this is about. So I parked in the parking lot of the paintball place and walked approximately 50 yards down the side of 138, fearing for my life.
Yeah.
People that turn onto 138 off of I-20 truly think they're still on the interstate. And they could support this county with citations written for speeding between the horse park and Georgia Highway 20 or Interstate 20. That's beside the point. When I did see the sign, I realized it was a single-face sign, and it remained that way for all the time that the sign was there up until yesterday. Yesterday, I rode by the sign and looked at the other side of the post. Lo and behold, there's an identical sign on the backside. So now, the day before this hearing, we have it correctly advertised. I was surprised to discover in the ordinance that it was very specific that it requires a double-faced sign. Another issue and this is not, well, this is part observation, I suppose. I have a lifelong fear, and this is based on the fact that I have lived at this address with my family for 51 years. And I know I don't look old enough to have been anywhere for 51 years, but the really bad news is I was 30 years old when I bought it. So simple arithmetic tells you, well, never mind. This fear that I've had is observation and the knowledge of the slow rate of acceleration of a school bus, along with the length of a school bus from wheelbase to wheelbase. Watching a school bus full of little ones from my neighborhood pull out from that light at our subdivision exit and entrance is terrifying. I don't suggest you do it, but with the combination of speeding, drivers on their telephones, that still happens a lot, and the slow acceleration rate of those school buses, along with their length, it is not a good situation. Now, we have had accidents under that light. Fortunately, in 51 years that I'm aware of, not a school bus. So we are eternally grateful for that. I just can't imagine that happening. Excuse me. Now on to the meat of my presentation. I understand that this rezoning case number 2022-04, which is the Lucas property, I know the Lucas family, I know who they are, was denied by the Planning Commission unanimously. I believe there are 5 members, maybe 6, in a meeting on October the 13th. Listening to the conversation among the attendees to the zoning meeting, it became apparent that the main issue was school overcrowding. I'm not going to deal with that. Another one of my neighbors, Jason, has some thoughts on that subject. But what we are seeing here is a very unusual, abnormal rate of population growth in what I believe is the smallest county in the state. Maybe not by population, but geographically. You're aware of the number of developments underway. Many, at least 6 are actually under construction as we speak here. But the gentleman, the developer gentleman that spoke, hit it right on the nail, right on the head. Somewhere this has to stop. The county, no county could handle this unnatural rate of growth, which is being caused primarily by the real estate industry. I love the real estate industry, but they're doing some damage right now. So this reckless expansion of townhouses or apartments, I'm not really good dealing with euphemisms, but I have not yet found a good differentiation between townhomes and apartments. I know that was that term was created to help the real estate industry overcome the unnecessary stigma concerning rental property. That goes way back to the 30s in America. This reckless expansion of units has got to stop somewhere. And I think you will agree with that. There has to be a limit somewhere. And I sincerely hope you will consider this development that we're concerned with here as the end of it. Let's stop it here. And the fact that the first committee that ruled on this...
Thank you, Mr. Gander. Your time has ended.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for speaking. Okay, so now we have some time for a rebuttal from the developer.
So I tried to write everything down in order, and in terms of impact on environment that was discussed. Our plan makes preparations for this. We have multiple ponds. We have large buffers to the single family. We have large buffers imposed on ourselves to the industrial, as well as picking up that extra land that would be made part of it for open space, in addition to exceeding the open space on ours. I'm going to after I run through a couple things, I'm going to let Peyton from TPA come up and talk about property management and how they do it, and just make sure that everybody understands exactly what that expectation is and how it's done for this. The difference between, I know there's been a lot of talk about units at the last hearing. I think the number was 2,800. It might have been 3,200. The last article I saw when they talked about the 2035 plan is that Rockdale's going to get 35,000 new people to 45,000 new people in terms of those next years to come. And so the amount of units that are being delivered, unfortunately, a lot of those won't be delivered. It'll be companies like TPA and the larger, really well-capitalized companies, because it's completely slowed down. I can tell you from our business that a lot of home builders have hit the brakes, and so I don't think you'll see those starts for, it'll feather out a lot longer. But the answer to that question is that a lot of, the amount of homes that are being delivered, it may seem like a lot, and development can be scary, especially to neighbors, but it's not as much as the amount of people moving to the southeast. It's just with the population boom, that is the reason that the real estate boom has hit, is the population boom, is people want to be in Rockdale County. They have very nice resources and where you can get to and access. We just looked it up. I've been out to the property several times. I didn't think there was any way it was open, but they verified that on Saturdays, I guess they are open, that the paintball places functions to this day. So I apologize for that. I'd never seen it open out there. There were some questions about water damage, topo, and runoff. So the way our property sets up, the topo actually slopes into us from the neighbors. And so on the north side, it slopes into a creek, but we don't have much of our development pushing up toward that buffer. Everything else slopes back down to the south, and that's toward the industrial and away from the residents at that area. Plus, we have that buffer to deal with. GDOT, as in our meetings with them, the reason we have 2 access points is we wanted to have the ability to get to the traffic light, as well as being able to have, whether they decide on a full access or an R cut, which is where you cut in a left turn lane into our property. But our success is about, we're not going to be successful. It's not safe to get into our development. And so it's up to us to make sure we're safe. That's why we've already approached GDOT for that. There were some discussions about the hospital, where it is. One of the reasons we're so interested in this property is that we believe that there's not enough housing in very close proximity to that hospital, and we want to deliver jobs within very close proximity to the hospital that is up there, and that's Piedmont Rockdale Hospital. Changing the zoning, being dangerous was one of the comments. It's zoned heavy industrial right now. You can plop down a about 325,000 square feet facility that's about 40 feet high is the amount you could put right today. And then that traffic going out to 138 would be way more dangerous than residential. And so what we're proposing is we've looked at this for a long time in terms of the best way to circulate. That's why we've negotiated for the back entrance to get to the light. That does not go through any residential area. That goes through the industrial area. But we have 2 different ways to navigate that site. And so we really believe that what we're proposing is much less in terms of traffic volume and dangerous traffic volume, like large trucks. He talked about the lengths. Large trucks are twice as long as the school bus. The Planning Commission denial, the school overcrowding, there wasn't a lot talked about on our case. There's just some mention about stormwater, but that's why I wanted to show those, because we have a little bit different district zones than some of the other ones that were shown that have been talked about. We're a little bit further east out here with the elementary and the middle school. And the PC denial, like I said, the longest running member voted to approve it in July. We just kind of ran into a lot of cases in the last one. And then the last thing, and if Peyton can come up and talk about the management company, was just that rate of population growth. And that's really just controlled by, like I said, how many people are moving to the county and being able to have viable housing from here. And the last thing I'll say, as he talks about this, is that I guess the alternative they're thinking would be single-family detached families. Being where the industrial is, right on 138, having a ton of kids for everything that they talked about, that's why it's not the right fit. That's why the townhomes are the right fit.
Before he starts about the management, one of my big concerns is the fact that I have so many residents saying that they've just found out about it. And I know this is the second time that it went through the Planning Commission, which means that they didn't know about it the first time, I'm assuming. Would you all be opposed to having a neighborhood meeting just to answer questions, specific questions to the members of the community that have those questions, show them in detail? Because right now you only have 20 minutes to tell us. And I understand what it means for this to go from the industrial to the residential and what could be there without it coming through us. But I want people to understand and be able to have the questions and start seeing that space different, even if it's not residential, then I'm thinking that the owners are intending to sell it. So it might be something else and it might be something worse. So I would like to see if you all could at least call a community meeting so that the residents can ask detailed questions and have an understanding of what you're planning on doing, who your target market is, what the price points are, and the impact that it had. And maybe they could give you some suggestions on things that they may that may bring them to a place where they, if they are not going to get up and support it, maybe they can live with it. So I would ask that you do that.
Yeah, 100%. I wrote down Robert's name. I had approached Sheila after the last meeting to mention there may have been some confusion if she thought it was over or something, because I was going to give her packets. But we'll definitely touch base with Robert and them and set up whether in person or Zoom and go over everything with them. Not a problem. I had already definitely written that down because I wanted to share that, because at the first meeting in July, no one had showed up, and then the last one, it was just one person. So, we figured that everyone knew and saw the buffers on the plan and the industrial.
Right.
I had that same comment written down to ask him, so thank you.
On this.
Hey, I'm Peyton Jones, the developer, TPA Residential. I just want to address the concern about the management of the property. We contract with professional, institutional, large property management companies, and they're the best in the business. We've thought about, growing our company branch to be more efficient when we're owning these properties, to, run the actual property, and we can never upkeep the property the way that these professional management companies do. We'll have a full-time staff on site, so we'll have 4 to 5 individuals that this is their full-time job. They show up every day, they maintain the property, they're there for the residents. And we're also willing to propose a condition that says, hey, by the time, once it's built into perpetuity, that it'll be professionally managed by an institutional grade company. So this professional management will last a lifetime at the property, because, we want to be proud of our developments when in 20, 30 years, these individuals are concerned about what it's going to look like down the road. Yeah, they look great in the beginning, but sometimes developers where they run into issues down the road is they cheap out on the management and the property starts to deteriorate. Well, we don't want that. We want to be proud of our developments in 10, 15, 20, 30 years when we drive our kids by. So we're willing to put that condition on the property that says, hey, this property will always be maintained by an institutional grade company this is their full-time job. This is what they do. So that's all we would like to say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this closes the public hearing for this one. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back to look at item E and item F.
vitamin D, soy, almond.
Whole milk.
Whole milk.
Not skim, not
Right.
2%.
That's what you had to tell Oz. Because I can't say with these hot mics.
Let's go ahead and resume and finish up our public hearing tonight.
All right.
Okay, let's either take a seat or go ahead and leave if that's what your plan is. But we're going to begin again, and so we need it to be quiet. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with item E, 1609 Valley View Road.
Yes, today's case is SUP case 22-01. Applicant is Mr. Reginald Crump. The applicant is looking to request a special use permit for the operation of a commercial dog kennel. The subject property is 7.1 acres. Sorry. This is just a blown up map of the county. The map is just indicating the location of where the subject property is. The applicant is located in the southern tip of the county. This is just another aerial photo to show you where the location of the actual subject property. Again, the property is located, is abutting an existing established single-family residential neighborhood. Where the property is sitting, it has the appearance that it's part of the subdivision, but it's actually not part of the subdivision. As you come into the property off Fountain Blue, off Valley View Road, it looks like it's part of it, but it's actually not a part of the neighborhood. So I just want to make it clear. The applicant also does have a driveway off Fountain Blue Road, but they actually do not have frontage on Fountain Blue Road. So the actual frontage is actually on Valley View Road, but they actually have a driveway off Fountain Blue Road. This is just, the current zoning map of the subject property. The property is zoned agricultural residential. Located to the southern portion of the property are R1 single-family residential established neighborhood. And also is located, again, surrounding other agricultural residential zone property. The future land use for this current property is medium density, and everything else surrounding it is medium density as well. Kind of summary of the application. The proposed is a dog kennel. It sits on the 7.1 acres worth of site. Our zoning, our agricultural zoning does allow for the commercial dog kennel with a special use. I forgot to put it on here. This is actually after the fact request. The applicant actually has an existing dog kennel on the property. We were notified through our code enforcement from complaints from neighbors. So therefore, code enforcement went out. They're actually on site and saw there were already existing dogs on the property, and therefore they were instructed to come into the Planning and Development Department and apply for a special use permit. Thus, why they are here this evening looking for a special use permit. This is just a site plan, again, just showing a little bit more detail of the proposed location. Again, as staff mentioned earlier, the applicant has a driveway that goes all the way down to Valley View Road, I apologize, and then also along Fountain Blue Road too. Staff did provide analysis of it and did recommend denial of this application. The Planning Commission recommended denial as well. As far as I can see, the applicant is not here this evening.
Okay. Could you tell us why staff voted for denial?
Staff recommended denial because the applicant is abutting two existing residential subdivisions. Staff believes that that type of use abutting existing residential subdivision would not be would be a detriment to the neighborhood. Staff believes if the applicant was situated in an area where it's more larger tracts, single family tracts, not actually in a subdivision, it'll be more suitable for a commercial dog kennel. However, since that applicant abuts two residential neighborhoods where that type of use could be a detriment to the surrounding community, staff believe that it's better that's not a suitable use for that location.
Okay, thank you. So you said go ahead.
Is this the same dog kennel that's been there for years? It's a dog.
I'm not too sure.
Do y'all know what it is?
No, this has been a couple of years. Code enforcement manager.
Okay. And you said the applicant is not here?
No, ma'am. The applicant is not here.
And do we have anyone here to speak in opposition?
Yes, ma'am. We have 4 cards in opposition.
Okay. Let's move forward with those.
The first person is Dr. Charles Height.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your time.
Good evening.
Good evening. I am also at this time the president of the Homeowners Association for Fontainebleau. I'll be real quick. I know we got 10 minutes, but I've gotten many complaints from my homeowners about the stench, the smell that comes down into our properties. I have a couple of neighbors who will talk about that. We have the property. They're building they have the dog kennels right there budding the property of one of our builders right now. We have properties that are also going up, so our subdivision is growing right now, and our homes are upper middle class homes. You're talking about $600,000, $700,000 homes, and so with that, not the stench, the sound, the noise, pollution, everything. So, and even though it's off of Valley View Drive, it's a property that when I first took over as homeowner, so I thought it was part of our neighborhood. That's how close they are to our houses. They're right there in front as we put into our subdivision. So just representing the homeowner association, I just ask you please do whatever you can to make sure that this does not go through. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next,
Mr. Floyd Lance.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
And thank you for your amazing patience. I have some handouts. Thank you. I am building in the community. We're building $700,000 to $800,000 homes. And when you get your handout, you're going to see that I've got properties on both sides of this property and across the street. And the stench that was referred to literally goes 1,000, 1,500 feet. If you'll pull up the aerial view, please, I'll show you literally some of the information on this. Now, if you look through your pages, you'll see feces. I had a lot of feces dumped over on my property. When I first came in, when I bought the property, there was no zoning like this. I would not have bought this property if that were the case. They had they were allowed 7 dogs. They had a permit to kennel 7 dogs. And they have had up to 61 dogs in this property. So that tells you there that even if you granted them permission to do 21 dogs, they disregarded the previous special zoning that they got to do a boutique kennel. You can see the open feces that's on the ground in the kennel in these pictures, and they were supposed to have reduced the dogs, and these pictures were taken last week. I counted 24 dogs in these pens, and these pens are supposed to be at least 200 feet away. If you see the aerial up there, if you see that long covered building there, that's it right there. That abuts my property. I am 10 to 15 feet away from that. Those are where all the dogs were housed. And now they have changed, they have kennels going the other way, but they're still not 200 feet away. There is not a single kennel that's 200 feet away. And you'll also notice on the back page, the larger page, the breed that they're doing are pit bulls. You know, I love dogs, but the pit bull breeds are very dangerous. I have homeowners on both sides and across the street. If these dogs were happen to escape or something was to happen, it would put a direct danger for any of the families or any of the people that we move in here. The reality is, with the stench that's going on, there's no way that I can sell a $700,000 or $800,000 house on that property, nor do y'all want to live there. I'm just going to quote a couple code sections right quick, and these guys already know this. This is the reason they're not approving it. Section 4272, Rockdale Section 703, there's required the 200-foot buffer from any property line. Also, the noxious smells and feces is not approvable. This is per Georgia Section 42-72. So they're not in compliance in any way. So I do thank you for your time and your patience.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Next is Mr. Reginald Huff.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you all very much for letting me speak.
Thank you for being
I am a resident of 2007 Fontainebleau Drive. I was one of the first residents to move there. Beautiful place. And I'm not just saying it, but the developer is really a good developer, and I have a good HOA president. They are not in the area. They're not in Fontainebleau, but I'm talking about the Crumptons. They're not in Fontainebleau, but they live right up on the hill with all the dogs. So I'm an old school person. The stench is outrageous. I live there, and we've spent a lot of money on our house. I'm retired, and you like to live comfortable. But first thing my parents always taught me was to talk to your neighbor. You know, just go and talk in a reasonable way. Well, the stench was so bad. I went and I tried to talk to Miss Crumpton. She just cussed me out. And I said, you can't talk to a person like that. So I backed off. The next time I came up, she had an 18-wheeler parked up the street on Fontainebleau that I could not. It's a little area where you have like a cypress tree, big, huge cypress tree in the center, and the road, it parts around it, very nice, and one car goes one way, the other goes the other. But this lady had an 18-wheeler, and it was parked for the dog food. And so she had to take a forklift to bring all the food up there to the dogs. And I asked her, it was blocking everything. And, you know, she just didn't do anything. The next time I'm looking out, because I have a gate, and I have dogs too. And I have a gate so the dogs can't get out. It's an automatic gate, you open and close, and they can't get out. It's over an acre. And so what had happened is, I came out because I like landscaping. I like doing things. And I'm an old photographer. But the bottom line is that I opened my gate and there was a huge pit bull. He had came loose from the lady's house. And this dog it's not the baby, it was crossbreeded to make it bigger and stronger. More steroids, I guess. But the bottom line is I had to throw rocks at the dog to get it away. And that lady I went there and I called the codes. I was one of the people to call the code people up. And they came, they found out that she had 55 dogs. Now we hear she has 60 dogs. And now, and the smell is so bad, I got sick, I had to go to the doctor. I like working outdoors, I can't work. After 5 o'clock, the sun goes down, that means the wind drops. That means she's up higher and the odor starts to drop down on my property. And it smells so bad that you can't cough. I mean, you start coughing. It stinks. It's horrible. And I don't. It's much money and expense as in our neighborhood or anywhere else to come and live like that is really bad. And you can't talk to her, and she doesn't tell the truth. So I hope you deny her. And I'm not trying to stop anybody from making a living, but I'm not only health, it's for my health, it's for what I've worked hard for all my life, and I love the neighborhood. And I think it's going to grow and grow and grow. And I hope you can allow to vote just to deny her. I think that's probably the reason why she's not here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have one more, did you say?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. George Kelichek.
Good evening again. Busy night. Just want to also deny and oppose this issue, and I hope you all do so. Also do so. The applicant not being here, I think, sends a clear message. One item that I'll be doing tomorrow for the citizens of Rockdale County and the adjacent landowners is I'll be getting in touch with Mr. Doug Chandler, and I want to make sure that the health department of Rockdale County is aware of this, and due to health reasons, and you heard that folks can't breathe out here, this is a health department issue, and this operation needs to be shut down. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no applicants, so we have no rebuttal, so thus this public hearing is closed, and we will move to item F, 2462 Wall Street Southeast.
Yes, this last application before you this evening is SUP case 22-002. The applicant is Ms. Natasha Collier. She is looking to get a special use permit for the operation of a child daycare with at least 3 children and no more than 6. Just kind of do a quick summarization of this application. Again, Ms. Collier is looking to do a daycare with at least 3 children, no more than 6. The subject property is actually located in the Arbor Glen subdivision. The applicant will comply with the state. That's actually the right from the start regulations. The use, it is compatible with the future land use, i.e. with the approval of a special use permit. An R1 zoning permits daycare with this special use. This is just an aerial map of the subject property. Again, the applicant is located in an established single-family residential neighborhood, which is the Arbor Glen subdivision. Again, it has frontage off Wall Street, and then has exit onto Ellerton Road Southeast. The future land use for the subject property is medium-density residential. Everything surrounding the subject property has the same character area. Again, the zoning for this property is R2 residential family. I apologize. When I took this picture, I had the subdivision layer on, so that's why it appears like it's industrial, but I assure you it is not. It is R2 family residential district. Staff did recommend approval of this applicant, and so did the Planning Commission recommend approval as well. The applicant is here to do his presentation. Do you have any questions of staff?
I don't have any questions, do you?
No.
Okay, well, let's hear from the applicant. I guess this is the opening of the public hearing? Yes, it is. Yes, okay. 10 minutes.
Hello, thank you for having me before you today. My name is Natasha Collier. I reside at 2462 Wall Street. I am looking to open a child care learning center in my home. It's a max up to 6 children. I am going through everything right now. I have my business license. I did name the daycare Serenity's Little Tykes. And currently, after this, I will be going through Bright from the Start. So I'm following all of their guidelines and regulations to open the program inside of my home. It will be I will have, children from infants to maybe up to 4 or 5 years old. Eventually, I look to fence my yard so I can have the children play in the backyard. I do have my CDA right now, and I do plan on getting my associates in child care as well. So I'm changing over my career.
Okay. So let me just ask, it sounds like you still have some educational things to do and some accreditation by the state. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I have my CDA, so that's really all I need, but I'm going a step further to get my associates.
Okay, all right.
And I have approval from my HOA. My neighbors that live within the vicinity don't have a issue or problem with, me opening or having the children inside of my home.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any questions?
Oh, no,
Okay. All right, do we have anybody in opposition?
Well, we actually do have one person in support of the applicant. That's Ms. Cecilia Macklin. She's in support of the applicant.
She's in support. Okay.
wow.
Yay.
Good afternoon to everyone in attendance here. I am Ms. Collier's neighbor.
Yes, ma'am.
When I saw them put the special use permit out there, I went to her and I said to her, "Ma'am, can I help you?" And I gave her my experience. She's a pillow in the community. I live across the street from her. I'm on Arbor Glen, but her mailbox is on Wall Street. I'm there for her. I am a retired teacher from Upper Marlboro, Maryland.
Yes, ma'am.
I ask you all to search your heart and allow her to take care of the children. We need someone where the children are locked out, forgot their keys, or however, can point to that house and say, "Let's go over there. Mom says it's okay." Everybody don't want their child in a daycare center where there's a cluster of kids with a lot of germs. And I'm there for her. She will be with these children on a one-on-one basis. And I just ask you again to please, please search her heart and give her what she needs. She has done everything decent and in order. She just needs to open up her home.
Yes,
my time is up. Thank you for yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say thank you for coming? It means everything to me to have a neighbor come out in support of another neighbor. Those are the reasons why I love this community, because we do have people like you that will sit until almost 9:30 so that they can come up and say something positive about a member in this community and what they're trying to do, and that you are living next to this and support it. So thank you. That's been the highlight of my night. Thank you.
You should see her yard. I thought mine was pretty, but she keeps her home beautiful.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. She can come with my yard.
Any other people for or against?
We do have one person against, and that is Mr. George Kelichek.
Of course.
Oh, okay.
Good evening again. I just have a few questions. I understand what certainly this young lady and her next door neighbor are committed to doing for the citizens of Rockdale County. My questions would be, I know that she has gathered her qualifications for the county and for the state of Georgia to have a daycare center in her home. My questions would be, does she have the correct insurance to protect herself and the children that will be entering her home? Next, has the health department done an inspection of this home? I heard the other lady say free of germs. Again, this is a health department item that needs to be addressed prior to approval. And also, they mentioned she would be caring for 6 children. Does she have any employees? I don't know that one person can care for 6 children at one time. So those would be my questions back to the applicant. Just to make sure, because they have great intent, we just need to make sure that their plan is correct before it moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is that everything, Mr. Wheeler?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's the close of this part of the public hearing. Do we have any reports?
The only report that I would like to do is just to announce that we have 2 new planners for starting with us for Rockdale County. They stayed throughout the entire time. They didn't have to, but they wanted to anyway. That's Miss Alexia Wilson and Miss Carolina Angulo. They have been a bright spot for us in the planning department, and I am excited that they are here with us, and we look forward to the great things they will do for the county.
Okay, welcome to Rockdale County. We're so glad you're here. And thank you.
We're going to chain you to your desks.
Yes.
So that you all can't leave.
Yes. Also, Ms. Aisha Paul, she just started as well. She's our new administrative coordinator as well. She's her first actual hearing, so she stayed throughout the entire time as well. So I am baptizing them by fire. So.
So she will be chained.
All right. Thank you. We appreciate the work that you have done in the planning department and how smoothly everything went this evening, and so very well organized. So thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.